gloves when I go out shopping. I'm Therese Swenson, and I've been wearing two masks now when I go out, just to be sure. I wear the little extra blue ones that we get along with a nicely colored one. And I just want to remind people that it's the one thing we can do. And I know they're not so concerned about surfaces, but I do have several pairs of gloves. And when I get out in the car and I go to town to do my errands, I wear my gloves. And when I come home, I throw them in the wash. You know, you look at the turn of the century, and a lot of the ladies wore gloves, and of course, all the men wore hats. And it makes me think that maybe there were health reasons that people wore gloves. Maybe they thought it did keep them healthier, and it wasn't just fashion, because pretty much everybody wore gloves. So I'm thinking maybe that's a good thing for us to do to not spread this. We're all doing what we can, and we've been so careful here in the North State. But I do want to remind you to have extra ways to wrap up your face. Like these scarves, if you've got some old scarves, or even if you took a sweater, I was saying, you could take the sleeve of a sweater and wrap it if you were out and about and you forgot to bring it. So I pretty much have all kinds of options everywhere. So think about that you have more than one mask in your possession or something you can use for a mask. Now, with this being here at the public access station, I am here with Siskiyou Media Council. My name's Therese Swenson. I'm starting my show on purpose because I think it's so important that we all remember it is the new normal. So I'm here with Siskiyou Media Council in Southern Weed, and we have a new TV studio, and I always like to invite people to get involved. Come on down or call or look us up on the internet, Siskiyou Media Council, and we have two TV stations. One of them is in Mount Shasta, and it's Channel 15, Mountain Community Television, and one of them is in Wairika, and it is the Wairika Channel 4, YCTV. So Siskiyou Media Council can be found on the web, and you can see that if there's city council meetings or something going on with a new development that you might want to follow, you can find those groups of meetings on the web, either for Wairika or Weed or Mount Shasta or Dunsmuir. But also if they have a special meeting out in Fort Jones or something, it'll often make this web. The meeting will be recorded and shown at a later time. So look on the web for us. Now there's a lot of people that are doing news. We have different news reporters. I wish I'd made a note of their names, because all over the county we have news reporters going out and catching photographs or filming events and submitting them. So we're kind of getting ready and thinking about doing some sort of news program, maybe weekly or I don't think, I'm not sure how much we can have people putting things together, but there might be able to weave all the segments that people are collecting. So if you'd like to get involved in that, and maybe you're really good at editing and you've been practicing with iMovie, we could use your help. We'd like for you to get involved. So Siskiyou Media Council, you can find us on the web, but also we're at South Siskiyou Avenue. I can't remember the address. I want to say 616 or something, but it's right across the street from the back entrance of the college, and there's an ATM kiosk that you're most likely to remember seeing people using, and that's right outside our doors. There's a hairdresser and another hairdresser and counseling and other services in this building. So this is called the Alvarado Building in Weed. Siskiyou Media Council is also on the YouTube now. If you go to YouTube and ask for Siskiyou Media Council, you'll start to see different shows that have been recorded here in the studio. Now, they're also archiving a lot of old shows. I was confused about the date because usually what's latest is on top. And I saw some old stuff from like 6-7 years ago, but they had some really good programs they wanted to bring back that they found in the archives. The Singing Bowls. John, what were some of the other programs that you said Arthur did that had really good guests and they had discovered? Did you happen to see
Oh,
any of
I think
those?
like Bread and Blues.
And so he had some different
Yeah.
shows, a stack of discs. So they brought some of his stuff back. What else are they bringing back? Because I know they've found some old archive shows.
They have all sorts of things that they've found from like 2010 and before that era. Shows all sorts of things that everyone did at the college.
Oh, it was like Andre did her shows before she did Best of Mount Shasta.
Yeah, yeah. So I think one of her shows is in there
Oh,
at
good.
least, and yeah, and all there's student productions, but there's also things from that's more historical.
Oh, so they found some things in the archives that they're putting up. So that's now on YouTube. You might find that if you go to YouTube and look up Siskiyou Media Council. So anyway, if you're kind of curious what we're all doing, there's different people doing meditation, and uh, Arthur interviews people and he studies about Talos. He believes that there's activities within the mountain, and so he has different interesting people on. And I'd like to remind you, you're invited. Come on down and get involved. Or present us with some content that you've done, either photographs you've taken. I know I'm repetitive. People tell me, Trez, you say the same old thing. But I say, does anybody watch this show more than once? And if not, I want to remind you, if you've got something to contribute, we're looking for new content, and we'd like to have 24 hours a day of content. Right now, I think we go to print at some point where we have some different activities that are a rolling script. But the more content we get, we can fill up the space. So get involved with public access. And then I
Yeah,
also like,
if someone's wanting to do a show, you should call in. Maybe you can be Therese's guest. If you know Therese, call her. She'll
yeah,
make you her
I
guest.
love to get people on and talk about if you're working on an art project. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Can we put up the sign about the art hops? So I have a sign from last year's art events in Wairika. And they made this poster that actually kind of shows the downtown of the city. And it's on Minor Street. And it's called Wairika Art Hops. Now, if we could leave that up just for a second. I know that this happens once a month. All the different artists kind of open their door, and now they're being really careful, and people are coming through one at a time. But all the different art stores are opening their doors on Minor Street in Wairika once a month. Now, you'd have to call the city hall to find out the exact dates, because this poster is from last year. This year, they have something showing all the different artisans and their different tools of trade. But I still had that poster I wanted to share with you from last year to remind you that Minor Street and the different art studios in town are inviting you to come walk through town. Now, one of the art studios, Serendipity, she's right on the main boulevard. She has an art studio where she can do classes. And what works for me to bring that up with you is that she has a wall full of projects where she says, do you like this picture of a chicken or a cow or a dog? And the people that come to the class maybe bring a picture of their own dog, or they follow and do what she does. But they all work together getting a finished product in just a couple hours. So sometimes if it's young kids, they'll be serving them maybe sugar water, Kool-Aid or something. I don't know, fruit juice. But if you're elderly or older, they sometimes have a glass of wine with the class. And the reason I'm bringing this up is Serendipity will work with, like, if the charter schools or 4-H or FFA or one of your meeting groups, she'd be glad to meet with you. Let's say your group raises pigs. She'll meet with you and help all the kids paint a picture about pigs. And they can maybe put their name on it for next year's fair. Because one of the things, each child needs to name their pen and their pig. But anyway, the idea being that you could do an art project with friends or family as we're all clustering in groups. We've been very good in our county. We're just over 100, and this is like 90 or 100 days into testing. So we're doing good that everybody's being respectful, wearing masks, staying home, washing, um, and being careful. Just plain being careful is helping us keep this from spreading. So we need to keep up the good work. I like to remind people to get the paper. I've always been somebody that believes the paper has something for everybody. Oftentimes, like I say, people will just want to get it for the sporting green, or somebody's looking for a car, or somebody has a favorite editorial that they like to read, or there's a cooking segment. Right now, of course, we've had a lot of coverage because of the fires, uh, the wind-driven blazes. This really makes me want to remind everybody that people are getting warned to be careful and start packing and think about it, because these fires, they're shifting and they're moving to different areas. So we really need to remember where we live here in Northern California. Now, we've seen the fires before, and this year has really sparked up a lot sooner than, well, it just seems early. And all of Southern California, north of Santa Cruz, and Vacaville was evacuating, and Sonoma County, and Guerneville, and up near the wineries up in Healdsburg. I was talking to Lee Nall. She's the they kept the family wineries going. I worked with her at Public Health many years ago in Sonoma County. I was talking to Lee, and she said, "Well, right now the fire's on the other side of the creek." She said, "What's that old saying? God willing, and the creek don't rise," or something. Anyway, we all need to remember to go outside and look around our yards. Now, I do have a lot of pine needles in my yard, and that's the thing you should be looking for, is anything that is tinder or fire starter that's near your house. The CAL FIRE is now starting to go around and write people tickets to remind them, hey, rake up those leaves, get those all gathered up and taken either to a brush dump. If you live in South County, Dunsmuir, Castella, there's a free brush dump in Castella near the community garden. I made a sign for the community garden. Oh, John, I should have sent you that picture. It says, welcome pollinators. I'll have to get you some of my pictures. I do make signs, and right now might be a good time after reminding you to just look around and make sure you're fire safe, and make sure you've got your passport and your important papers in an envelope. I'm hoping that we don't get threatened again this year, but if you're prepared, it will make you a little more relaxed. Just make sure all the important things like your taxes and just one box at the door of important papers. But John, while I'm talking about signs, I'm going to hold up this one and remind people that right now we're all being very concerned about what's happening at the post office, because it really does affect all of us. So I'd like you to write down this phone number, and not necessarily for voting, but this is your House of Representatives, 202-224-3121. And what's important is you can ask, who's my representative? I want to tell them that I'm upset, I'm having trouble getting my checks in the mail, or my medicine, or I have a little home-based cottage industry business, and I was using the post office to mail my products, and I'm feeling like things aren't getting there in time, and the materials that I order that I need to make my artwork is not coming in the mail. So we really need to all rise up and speak up, whether or not you're Republican or Democrat. We all need the mail the same. The post office is just critical to everything that we do. And now more than ever, with people being at home and away from loved ones, I've been sending postcards everywhere I go. It's only it's a 35-cent stamp. So you might think of sending postcards or letters. You know, it's a good exercise for kids to just practice their writing skills, and maybe write a little short note to grandma that they can't go hug her, but they could maybe I saw somebody take some paper and make arms and mail it to grandma so she could wrap the arms around her and hug herself. But the post office is so important to us, and if you don't let your representatives know that this is really upsetting you, that things are delayed, and I was expecting important bank papers and they haven't come yet. So I'm going to show you this number one more time in case you forgot to write it down. 202-224-3121. So that's the House of Representatives. So it's in Washington. So if you wake up early, you could call. You know, I would love to ask you to write a letter or to go on the web, and they have interact with your congressmen and representatives and senators and Congress and representatives. But I'm not sure everybody will take the time to write, but I know everybody's got time for a phone call. So call them up. And the most important part, if you call your representative, is to give your zip code. Because then they make a note, this zip code called and their mail is slow. Please help us. My consideration was that a lot of the mail sorting machines in Reading, the mail was being processed in Sacramento. So all of our mail up here in North County was being sent to Sacramento. So I wrote to Kamala Harris. Actually, I sent her one of my shingles and I put her name on it. And I was hoping that way whoever was opening the mail might find my letter. And I said, I'm really concerned about what's happening at the post office. And I'm really afraid for when it comes time to mail our ballots that they could delay our mail. So I'm hoping that people are looking at ways to protect the ballot, having maybe built big collection boxes that can be safely protected while people drop their ballots in, and those get to the county clerk. I was saying we should drop them off at the courthouse, the county clerk, or a polling place, because I'm discouraged that the post office is admitting that they might delay the mail. So please, I want everybody's vote to count. I don't care who you're voting for. I do ask that you get your news from more than one source. Oftentimes people get used to they like the same announcer that's on their news, so they watch the same time every day. But in between, when it's having commercials, switch to another station. Just see if you get different news. Because I often say this because I don't always agree with my son. And I say it's like holding up a nickel, and he says to me, it's heads. And I say, it's tails. You know, we're both looking at the same coin, but it doesn't always look the same. So sometimes we need to try and see it from the other person's point of view. I really want us to come to peace with this election. I want everybody to be able to get their information, digest it, and make an opinion and fact check it and know that what they're getting is the accurate information. So I know that there's a lot of people that could never be convinced otherwise, but I know there's a lot of people that are still learning and open to what's happening, because there's more things that we all agree on that unite us, whether it's having a job and job satisfaction, a job that gives us maybe benefits. Like I think Walmart keeps some of their employees under 35 hours so they don't have to give benefits. But in the old days, for my generation, when you worked for 25 or 30 years, you got a retirement check and you had health insurance. Nowadays, there's so many people that are working so hard to make a company good and big and successful, but they're not being rewarded with some sort of reassurance that there'll be money later. I know there's Social Security, and that's just a little bit to get by on. But with our president talking about stopping this tax that he's talking about, a payroll tax, I think people need to understand that can affect Social Security. That money that's collected in the payroll tax, that's what keeps Social Security going. Now, I know some of the people in the government want to privatize the money that's held for senior citizens that we paid into for years. But the worrisome part about that is we've all watched how the market goes up and down. We don't really want somebody to put our Social Security and gamble with it in the market. We want to keep our Social Security secure. And I don't want people to stop paying into the payroll tax, because it may not run out when I'm collecting, but by the time you grow up, it might not be there. So we need to protect all of us for our life of service and being able to sit back and relax and grow a garden and read the newspaper. I want you to rush out and get a paper. I promise you, if you pick up a paper and sit down with it and not watch TV and talk on your cell phone, you will find something interesting that you'll say to somebody across the room, or you'll call somebody, or take a picture of it and text them and say, look what I found's happening in your town or your neck of the woods. So let's all consider getting a paper. I think it's important we have to keep communication open, whether it's public access or our newspapers, and we need to all feel like we can contribute and educate each other and share with each other. Oh, that reminds me. I want to tell you something I learned this week. I had an eye appointment that was in the Bay Area, and I had a knee appointment that was also at the Kuhn Joint Replacement Center in St. Helena. And so I was going down and I combined the two appointments, and I was going to take my car, but it's old and feeble. So I decided to rent a car. So I went on the internet and I saw Enterprise, who I used to use, seemed to have a few complaints. So I thought, I've used Hertz before. I'll use Hertz. So I didn't. When I went in, I noticed that I used to get it at the airport, but this time I got it I had a key picture for you too. I got it at Market Street in Reading. And when I rented the car, I drove up and it said Hertz. And when they gave me the paperwork, it was in a Hertz envelope. And when they gave me the key, it had a little yellow Hertz car. And I got to going on the road and I was having car trouble. So I stopped at a local, I won't give you all the details, but I stopped at the next Hertz in the road and I told them about the car trouble I was having. And they said, okay, we'll give you another car. Bring us your paperwork. So I came in and I laid the paperwork down and they said, oh, this isn't Hertz corporate leasing. This is a private leaser. And I said, but it's a Hertz envelope, it's a Hertz key, and it's a Hertz building I rented it from. So I learned something. Now, if you're just renting a car to run around Reading while your car's being fixed, there would be no problem renting from the Reading leasee that calls themselves Hertz. But if you're going out of town and you want to depend on a car can be traded in for another one if it has some sort of failure, this was a Kia Soul, and you're never too old to learn something. A Kia Soul, you pull it into drive and it drives, and it seemed underpowered, so I put more better gas in it. I added more higher octane gas thinking that would help, but the car really was hesitating and lugging, and then when you'd push down on the gas it would over rev. It wasn't responding like I liked when I got into traffic in Benicia, so I tried to stop at Walnut Creek. Long story short, I learned something that I want to share with you. If you're traveling out of town and you're renting a car for a trip, you need to know there's a difference between a corporate Avis, Hertz, Enterprise. A corporate office will have reciprocity. You drive in with one car, they'll swap you out for another. But a private lease lender franchise does not have to honor the other car's reciprocity. And the paperwork I had, they weren't allowed to trade me a car. I've rented cars before. I didn't know that. So I just want to make sure if you're renting a car to go out of town, make sure you rent your car from a corporate name brand. And that way you'll know if you have car trouble that you can be okay. I eventually made it home and I was safe and sound, but I had some very scary moments in a car that wouldn't accelerate in traffic in the Bay Area when I was on a time schedule. So I was discouraged. I just thought I'd share that with you. What was the other thing I learned recently I wanted to share with you? So listen, about seniors, I had a few notes now with COVID. I think people are getting used to ordering their food at home. And so people are gonna continue to use that. That's another reason that the post office is so important. Not just checks and medicine, but also people are ordering food and clothes and students and learning and homeschooling and just even things to have for recreation in the backyard, wading pools or whatever fun games you might be playing. But one of the things seniors should take advantage of is telemed. I don't know if you've looked on your insurance card, but generally they have a phone number where you could call if you're just having a question, whether it's a rapid heartbeat or maybe a varicose vein or something that you had a question about. Also, I want to remind you that drugstores are doing more vaccinations. So you might not have to go to the doctor to get your flu shot for regular vaccinations. Your plumbing will be your doctor. Perhaps a few years from now, older Americans will have special devices to... I'm not going to say that out loud. What else did it say? Hotels will market medical care. Medical capability will build into travel. they say, for example, some hotels will have a doctor on site in case you have a medical disinfecting. Of course, now is just the sales pitch. Everybody is trying to get us to be disinfecting and be careful and wash your hands. The minute you walk in any room, wash your hands. I don't need that picture, John. We've had the same picture we've been putting up. Somebody said, "Oh, Therese, you need new stuff." And I said, "Oh, who watches this?" Anyway, a lot of older workers will stay home and work from home, and they're going to be not looking forward to shopping. So we're going to have this forced social distancing wherever we can. But we do have the people that are in our pod that we hang out with. Now, I know that I'm getting to the last few minutes here, and I just want to make sure that you think about something. If there is a chance that you have had this and maybe thought you had allergy symptoms or maybe a minor flu, I want you to remember that you might be able to be helpful to people. Plasma is going to be very important, and that's another reason testing is important. We need to know who's had it and how many antibodies, and they're now doing studies and statistical analysis, and they're finding that people's blood has antibodies which can help somebody get through the disease faster because their body's already fighting it. So I don't really understand how they do it, but they take your blood and they separate out these little antibodies and they give you a few and your body fights faster. So there are ways we can help each other, maybe by giving blood. Also, the blood banks are having a hard time right now because people are afraid to go. So please call if you have good, healthy blood and you like to get regular tests. And in the old days, they used to think if they bled people out, it took the disease out of them. So some people like to just have their blood removed so that they can build new blood cells and have new oxygen coming in. So I think my time's almost out. Am I 2 minutes, John? I wanted to tell people there's so many natural remedies for honey. Can I just tell you a few before my time's up? He's telling me they're the cut. But honey has a lot of natural remedies, so go to the website. And also uses for vinegar. There's a few things you should not use vinegar. So I just want to tell you 3 things. Don't use it on your computer, your cell phone. Do not use it on wood surfaces. Don't use vinegar where there's unsealed grout. So those are a couple things I want to remind you that I found out this week. So thank you for joining me. My show is These Times, and it's Therese Swenson, Siskiyou Media Council. Thank you.